are doing the best work of your career, growing, delivering, never dropping a ball. So why does someone else keeps getting the credit? This is Agentic AI Execution. No framework, no hype, just real calls from people shipping AI system under pressure. Today our guest is Uma, leadership coach and author of Sought After Leader. She spent more than 2 decades at Microsoft, where at one point she built a company-wide multi-day developer conference from scratch with zero event planning experience because she saw an opportunity nobody else was looking at. And here's the line that stuck with me. It's not enough to create most value. You have to make sure other people can see it and trust it. Let's get into it. Uma, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Leena, it's wonderful to be here with you today and speaking with the audience.
You spent more than 2 decades at Microsoft before writing Sought After Leader. What made you realize that being great at your job isn't enough? Why did you feel this book is needed to be written now?
So it all started with a phone call from a client who was one of my favorite clients. She was doing all the hard work and leading complex initiatives at her job. And every week I saw her grow and do that inner work and develop skills. But in that phone call that day, she told me that she had quit her job, the one that she had poured her years of life into. And I was just so shocked. And I realized after the call that this was a person that had done everything right, like everything that, common sense would tell us to do. She was doing the best work. She was growing. And still, in spite of all of that, she felt often misunderstood, undervalued. And ultimately that day she had reached a breaking point and she decided to resign. And that's when she had called me to let me know. And as her coach, I felt like I had failed her. She had come to me for support and I felt like, what did I miss? What should I have helped her with? And what's really going on here? Really couldn't shake off that feeling for days and weeks after that. But that led me to a journey to find the answer. What is it? Great work is not enough. Then what is it? Like, what does it take to get the rewards and the opportunities and the promotions? I could see that sometimes it was working. Some people were accelerating and, sometimes we have all experienced that. And so I went on to study my own life experience as well as people around me. I interviewed lots of people in tech in different levels, like starting from individual contributors to mid-level managers to VPs, seasoned VPs. And ultimately, I realized that this was not about performance or capability or talent. There was a gap between the contribution that you're making and the reputation people have about you. And that gap is what then I coined the term perception gap. And once I realized that there is a perception gap, I started seeing it everywhere. Like anyone that I spoke to and I shared, they were like, oh, yes, I think that's probably what I'm feeling too. I've experienced this. And so that's really kind of what put me into this mode of then understanding how do we close the perception gap. And again, just from studying people and reflecting on my own journey, I was able to come up with the system to close the gap. And I started coaching my clients on this. And that's when an opportunity came to write the book. And I think this message needs to be shared. And we were seeing when we applied this whole framework, we saw amazing results with people that were previously, feeling some of this, getting overlooked, getting passed over, and then them getting the opportunities, getting the awards, like all of those things started becoming commonplace. And so that's when I decided, okay, this is a book that needs to be written and this is a message that needs to be shared. So that's how the book happened.
Thank you for sharing that story. If perception gap is getting more widened with AI, because AI creates this continuous hallucination, there is more code being generated, less getting shipped to the production. I'm curious, if AI is generating all these documents, how is human qualities playing into effect in those perception gaps?
Great question. I totally agree with you. I think with AI and, AI kind of is handling our execution layer now. If you're a product manager, for example, you want to create your design documents, you want to create strategy documents, like you can create those pretty easily now with AI. If you're an software engineer, you can create code. So what is happening is all of that execution, creating output, that kind of stuff is now handled beautifully by AI. And if we relied only on the output, like hey, I was the one that wrote this design document and this was my achievement, and if we are relying purely on output alone, then we are in trouble. And that's when the perception gap can really be widened, and we struggle with it. But I think the opportunity that AI is giving us is because AI is handling all of this, this noise and, the execution layer of the work, and helping us create output really faster and better quality. It opens up an opportunity for us and creates time for us to go and, really invest time in the right types of things that actually close the perception gap. So I do have a framework that I talk about in the book and, in my work, which I call the SOAR Framework. SOAR. And what I'm now noticing is with the time that you're getting back from using AI and using AI to automate many of the things that we're doing, if you use the time wisely and use it in SOAR, you actually will close the perception gap. And actually, this is an exciting time with AI because now you don't have to worry about all that baseline type of work. You can really focus on SOAR and really elevate yourself and close the gap.
Tell us more about your SOAR framework and how it can help people to not be overlooked.
Definitely. SOAR, Leena. S stands for strategic impact. So it's all about elevating the impact that you can create within the organization, for yourself, for the world. I mean, you can, depending on what, space and arena you're playing in, you can think of it that way. But if we take the example of a mid-level, tech professional working in a corporate, within a company, you can think of it as how do you elevate your strategic impact within the organization. So not just thinking about your role, your responsibility, and just narrowly looking at what is in front of you. You look at what is the biggest impact that I can create in this organization. So you create value, you add value in that area. And I'm happy to give an example as well later on if you would like, on what that can look like. And so the second pillar is O, which stands for outstanding communication. It is about really honing in your communication skills. I was doing a lot. At some point, I started working on my communication skills, but I really didn't fully understand how important and critical it is. And I didn't give that much importance, which I wish I had known. So that's one I would say is at every level, our expectations of how we communicate and how we influence changes. So we need to continuously keep honing in on our communication skills and getting other people to trust us, right? Influencing other people. Like all of that becomes really, really important. And especially with AI as well, AI can handle all the data and, give us lots of information and create the documents and the strategy that we need. But we need humans to communicate, and especially communicate in a way that builds trust so other people will take action. That is still very human.
Yeah, I'm curious, like you mentioned about strategic impact. How do you create an impact and influence without having authority? A lot of TPM, PM role is about influencing team, organization without authority and creating that impact. How do you see in this AI things evolving?
So it becomes more and more important, right? Because everyone now can create that polished strategy document. Like it's like at your fingertips, you can create it, and documents and output look similar because we can all create similar stuff now with AI. So how, what is still uniquely differentiating for each individual is how they communicate, how they build trust, how they express their viewpoints and judgment, right? Like that is still very uniquely human. And that is where I think we need to make sure that we know how best to work with different styles of people, and being a good listener, understanding what people really want, creating shared wins, right? I mean, there's so many things that we can do that really AI cannot do. AI cannot read rooms, right? AI cannot walk into a room and read people and say, this stakeholder is not, ready to give us a buy-in, right? Like AI cannot do that. And those are all the things that if we develop our, awareness, if we develop our communication skills, if we, build our influencing skills, we can, that's the only way to one succeed in this era, as well as, differentiate ourselves and keep us moving in the right direction.
Yeah, coach people who are doing career pivots with AI. I'm curious, what's the playbook whose technical expertise is becoming commoditized?
I see a lot of people going and upskilling on AI, which is really good. But what we need to understand is that is just the foundation. That is, still just the baseline. And there is no need to do 10 different things. Like I also see many people like signing up for so many different certifications and programs just because I think, and I've talked to some of them, and sometimes they would, when I ask them questions, not necessarily my clients, but people in my network, and they would tell me, my gosh, Uma, only after you asked me like why I'm doing this certificate, I'm even thinking, why am I doing this? Like, I don't even know if I would ever use it. So I would, even in that AI upskilling, I would say be very strategic, right? Like have a vision, know where, where your passion is, where is the, what is the hottest area right now, where should you be investing your time and energy in upskilling, and do just that one thing, right? Like do that one thing. After you finish that, you can do the next thing if it makes sense. But do one thing that will put you, in the right direction. But at the same time, realize that tech upskilling or AI upskilling is just the foundation. It's not the differentiator. So if you want to really succeed and thrive, you have to hone in on your people skills, right? You have to know the 5 skills that I talk about in the book, specifically for like, the people skills. Is one is holistic vision. So even though you can, brainstorm with AI, you can get different options, you can explore all of that, you as a human need to step back, zoom out, and really understand what does the organization really need, and the different options, out of the different options, we have, and the things we could be doing, which is the best for us, best for our people, best for our customers, right? Like there are things that data will give us, but there's so much that data cannot tell us. And that is where you cannot feed it into like, an AI and expect it to answer. Like you have to know. And so the first thing that I would say is holistic vision. This is actually, I write it in chapter 11. It's called the human edge. So H stands for holistic vision. U stands for unshakable awareness. So this is about, again, understanding, what is going on in your organization, what does the customer need, like just understanding above and beyond what data is telling us, and being able to read the room and all of those types of things. So unshakable awareness is, again, another skill we can develop to really differentiate ourselves in this AI era. Third is magnetic communication. As I said, everyone can create a polished deck in 5 minutes using AI. But now what is still available to us is our magnetic communication. How can I deliver this so I can, build trust? I can earn trust from people. I can move people to action. Those are things still on us, and we can definitely develop, ourselves to be able to do that. And the last 2 are A for agility and adaptability. And you would agree with me, like in the AI era, like we are all trying to adapt. We are all trying to be agile. And so that is, we need to be able to be going in one direction, learning one technology. We need to be super agile and adaptable, knowing what's happening and be able to adapt. And the 5th pillar is N, stands for navigating complexity with calm. I really think that we need to be able to now navigate complexity, because there's just so much data and information and new technologies coming up like all the time. So how do you do that with calm? Again, these are the 5 skills, like H.U.M.A.N, the human edge, that I believe in this era, if we honed in on and developed, we can differentiate ourselves and really succeed. In addition to, of course, being very fluent in AI, whatever that is for your level and role. You have to be fluent in AI, of course, but I think on the human side, these are the 5 skills that I have seen to be really instrumental.
That's such a cool acronym to remember. I'll use it on a daily basis. I'm curious, maybe can you talk about a study where, say, somebody was technically expert with AI, but still overlooked and was not able to use those human skills, and what transformed the career ultimately?
Happy to share that. I'll share one story of a client of mine. She was a brilliant, I won't name her, but she was a brilliant tech professional working in one of the big companies that we all know of, probably use the products. And when she came to me, she was already, she was a principal level individual contributor, very experienced. And when she came to me, she had been working on an initiative for months, and her VP, who was a skip level, did not know that she was working on this. Like, she was very passionate about this area, so she was on the side, working on something. And this VP suddenly made a decision to, without knowing that she was working on it, he ended up coming up with the same idea and handing it over to one of her peers to drive it. And she was so upset. And I think she was even like, debating, okay, maybe I want to, leave this company and find another role, or, all that. She told me, I'm even ready to explore other roles and things like that. But as I talked to her and we understood a little bit more and we dug a little bit deeper, I realized she was not really looking for a role outside. What she wanted was, she wanted her leadership to be recognized. She wanted her contribution to be recognized, and which really fit in with, what I do now is really help people make their leadership visible, make their value known. I mean, that's really what I had, morphed my coaching into. So that really fit well with what I was doing. So we work together. And what we did was a few different things, right? And all of those, and she was in the AI space. I mean, she's still in the AI space. She's heavy into AI. Some of the things that we did, the shifts is, typically, when something like this happens, we would retreat and we would, from that project, because we would think, okay, now this belongs to another person. And, if they ask me something, I'll help. But otherwise, I'm going to like retreat and focus on my thing or figure out my next thing. The first thing we did was, because she had already put in so much effort and she had a lot of insights, she had a lot of passion, we reframed it, and she went in and actually leaned in and she supported that person, the peer, and contributed to that project very strategically, not from behind the scenes, but in the forefront. She supported her. She wanted that peer to succeed, and made it very clear that it's not coming in from a competition, or hey, I'm going to take this project from you. It was none of those. Like, it was a very pure, with an intent that, hey, I've already done a lot of work. Okay, you're leading this now. I want you to succeed here. I'll support you and help you with everything. Right? That was the first shift. And that person, again, totally, they just like rocked it together, and they worked on it together for a couple of months actually, and the project was a huge success. Going back to the SOAR framework, so she elevated her strategic impact, made sure that she's contributing really at a high level to that project. Outstanding communication. So all of these things, that wherever she had to communicate, we made sure that she was influencing the right people. She had very clear communication where her value is known and like trusted. And then we focused on the A stands for authority. She really came in as an expert. Like, if this person was new, like her peer was handed off the project, but that person did not really know, she had not done the work, but my client had the authority, she had the expertise, and she was already put in a thing. I mean, she stood like that. She came in with that authority. And the R is relationship mastery, which is, again, she started building relationship with her skip level. She started, telling her skip level and keeping him informed of what she was doing and how she's helping and all that, without, again, no competition or anything, but from a thing of, hey, this is how I'm supporting this. And she also communicated and kept him informed of all the other things, and not just the skip level, but she started building relationship across the organization, which is really what R is about. And you will not believe, Leena, what happened after that. When it was time to do a leadership demo to senior leadership, the VP did not ask the peer to come and present to the senior leadership. And so my client got an opportunity to go to the senior leadership team and present. And of course, she nailed it. She had great storytelling. She prepared really well. And she did a mind-blowing job on the presentation during the senior leadership demo. And then in that demo itself, like the VP himself, they wanted a buy-in. Of course, it was a pitch to like a larger initiative. And he just was like so thrilled with this that he just said, okay, we are going to do this, right? Like we are going to do this. This is something we need to commit. And they just ended up getting the buy-in in that meeting with her. And as a result of that, she got one of the VPs, another director, like a peer of the VP, ended up offering a director level position to her. Like, that came up. And also she got an Inspire Award right after that for her contribution. So this is just one example of what can happen when we elevate ourselves on all four of these pillars: strategic impact, outstanding communication, authority, and relationship mastery. And I'm seeing it now time and again. That's why I ended up writing the book. But really, we are seeing it working.
That's such a lovely story. Thank you for sharing it. One of the central ideas in your book is about organizations don't simply reward the people who create most values. They reward the people who can confidently recognize, whose value they can confidently recognize, trust, and amplify. Can you explain the distinction?
For sure. So that is exactly what I found in my study when I started studying the perception gap. Is it's not enough to just create the most value. You have to make sure that other people can see it and trust it. And many times we think when we are doing that, like I just want to clarify one of the myths is when I say that, people think, oh, does that mean I have to manage the perception gap? I have to manage how other people think, and does it mean I have to play politics or impress people, right? And or do I have to brag all the time and self promote myself all the time? And that's where my definition of visibility is very different. And what I mean by visibility is not by talking about what you do, self promotion or bragging, but it's more about how do you elevate yourself in a way that you're operating um, at such a level that your impact is undeniable. People know that what you do, what impact you bring, because you communicate really well, very you make your value known, you have established and built that credibility and trust, and you have good positive like relationships and people know what you do. That's to me is what is strategic visibility, and that to me is what is required for people to promote you and bring your name up in opportunities and stuff. So one thing that I would love for people to understand is we have to know that many of the times, in rooms where decisions are made, like if we're talking about promotions or when new opportunities come up, many of the times we are not there, right? We are not there. There is somebody else that is taking our name in that room, and they have a story of us, about us in their head. What is that story? And that is really what the perception gap is about. So if people are thinking about us as someone that is a great executor or very reliable, very good team player, doing great work, that's not enough, because when those leadership opportunities and those types of conversations are happening, they're not just looking for a reliable executor or a reliable, brilliant individual. They're looking for someone to create the future, right? So what we want to be doing is making it very clear that we are someone that creates the future, not just the present and the current role and all of that. So I think that is the biggest switch, is organizations reward people who create the future.
How do we see the future? And sometimes these future directions are coming from different angle, like product manager, and or even other leadership, engineering leadership. How do we create that shared vision, or how we be the leader driving that future vision?
I'll give you one example from my own career at Microsoft. So I started as a programmer writer at Microsoft in 2001, many years ago. And I evolved my role into, I read up a content, developer education, and then I evolved it into developer community and evangelism. So that's how I grew. And one of the opportunities that came to me several years ago was literally my manager was going on vacation and he just told me, Uma, and we were working on this huge AI platform. for Microsoft. Huge, like 5,000 software engineers building that platform and so on and so forth. And we wanted every Microsoft product team to build on that AI platform. I was responsible for the developer content for that and evangelism and community building. And my manager said, Uma, like, let's maybe do a half a day event and bring these software developers and from different product teams across Microsoft, and let's do a training. And he was thinking of like a small training for a small event. And we are a product team. I was the only one that was not product, but I was in that chain. So we are not a training organization or like marketing or anything like that. We were core engineering and I was in that org. So this was not my bread and butter. This was new to me. But he said, and he left on vacation. And I kept thinking, okay, we put together half a day event. All right, I can do that. But is that going to solve the problem? Right. And I realized it's a company-wide initiative that, we wanted every product team to build it. And so clearly I kind of felt like the half-a-day training will not work. And as I thought about it, I realized what is needed is a company-wide developer conference for the platform. And we need to get senior leadership, like even Satya or, like people like that to come and share the vision of why every product team needs to build on this platform, to helping software engineers understand the platform at different levels and have multiple tracks. So I envisioned something like a huge company-wide conference with multiple tracks, executive like keynotes and all of that, like ask the experts and product showcase, because we already had some product teams building on us. So I wanted to showcase those partners. I wanted those partners to showcase. So I envisioned this whole thing like a multi-day conference company-wide. And when he came back from vacation in the beginning of January, I had already found a mentor because I had no experience with conference or anything like that. Not even a half a day event. That itself was a stretch, but definitely a company-wide conference, never. So I had to leverage my network. I found a mentor who was already doing another very well-known company-wide conference. I did not know him, but I just blindly found out that he's the one that runs it, asked him to meet with him and asked him, hey, would you be my mentor? Would love to do something like this. And obviously he agreed. And with his support, I was able to create like the full plan, execution plan, the strategy, what we will get out of this, why we should do this now. Everything was written down, ready to go. And when my manager came back in our next one-on-one, I presented it. Immediately he said yes. And then so did every other leader in the leadership chain, because it was a huge initiative, lots of like budget and everything was required, lots of leadership involvement and people involvement. But it went through. And the reason it happened is because it was keeping like what I knew. Like I knew when I came up with the idea, I realized that this was the right thing to do. And the reason is because I knew that this was keeping senior leaders up at night. Like this platform, like everyone wanted every product team to build on that platform. So it was just something so obvious. It was just there, kind of in the white space, but no one was thinking about it. And that opportunity was just there. So one of the things I talk about it in the book as well, and I coach, is there are opportunities like that for each one of us in our organizations currently that I call, they're in the white space. These are not opportunities already like, OKR then sanctioned, but these are available. And all we have to do is one, we have to have the passion and the intention to want to play in that space. And once we have that, and we are willing to look, and if we do listening tours, I love listening tours for that reason, is you go and talk to leaders, you and talk to different people, like not just leaders but all levels. Go talk to people, go talk to customers, understand what are the challenges, what are the problems, what's keeping people up at night. Those things will give you the opportunity to see what is available, and something will click, right? If you're looking for that, like that is what I have experienced in my life. When I operate like this and think like this, I see them, and I know everyone can. And sometimes we just think, oh, this is too big, or I'm never going to get support, or people are not going to agree, and we ditch them. Like we just don't pursue those ideas. But that's where I would say, just believe in, if you think that's the right thing to do, no matter how big it is, go ahead and try. And so that is what I would say, as being able to see the bigger things, bigger opportunities would be the way to go.
I think looking for those white spots is key, and keeping eyes open and making those bold bets that after
Exactly.
time investment on me, my career growth, eventually it may pay or may not pay, but the learning experience will always stay.
Totally. And I talk about a frame, like I have come up with a framework in chapter 7, which I call level 10 opportunities. Like the example that I took, the conference opportunity for me was a level 10. Now, what I mean by level 10 opportunities, this is something I learned from a mentor. But what it is you find an opportunity like that in the white space, like for your organization, the space that you're playing in. When you do that, those level 10 opportunities actually will kind of meet several criteria, and one of them will be, of course, it is one of the most strategic problems like your organization needs to address. I mean, that's like at the highest, but it is also something that will take you to the next level, is something so strategically aligned that it will help you grow. It needs to fit all of those things, because that's when you'll be passionate, you will put in the work, right? So it needs to have a few of those elements, and I have the full checklist in the book, but I didn't want to take up too much time here. But I want to say that it's also an aspect of it, is it helps you grow as the leader. Like all of those things just automatically comes when you operate like that.
If listeners remember just one idea from sought after leader, what do you hope it is?
That everyone can become a sought after leader. It is something that is doesn't require any kind of credentials or background or privilege or anything special. It is what is required to close the perception gap and to become a sought after leader is all like within us. It is just we have to make the decision, we have to be intentional and willing to do the work, and it it works. And I have seen it in my life as well as in many of the people now that I have seen, and I've interviewed a bunch of people that I have seen in my life as sought after. For every one of those people, I have seen the formula work. So, if one thing I want to leave the audience with today is, you are brilliant, you are already doing hard work, great work, you're talented, you're capable. Make sure that you're also sought after, and I wish each and everyone the very best, and hoping that everyone can lead their career with intention, with full limitless potential, and a little bit lighter. Like there are also things that I talk about in the book, which is about stopping the proving track, like ending the proving track, and not getting stuck in having to prove yourself again and again, not getting stuck in the victim trap. Those are also things I talk about. So many of the benefits that can come from applying this is also you can live your life lighter. You don't have to carry so much burden. You don't have to do too much. So, how do you do this with the least amount of struggle and challenge? And you do it with a support system that uplifts you. That's really what I wish for our audience as well, as so that they can lead their life lighter.
Where can listeners go if they want to start on this today?
Amazon. Book is out on Amazon as of July 3rd. So I would say the book would be the first thing. But of course, I'm active on LinkedIn pretty much every day. So you can reach out to me as well on LinkedIn. And also my website link is there as well. So any of those formats is great for reaching out. And I would love to talk to you further, Leena, as well as your audience, if they have experienced perception gap or if they have ideas on closing it.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for joining today. It was such a pleasure talking to you, learning about the book, and I've already started reading, and I'm looking to complete it soon.
Thank you so much, and thank you for reading it as well, and thank you for having me.
Three things I'm taking away from this conversation. Creating value isn't the finish line. Someone else has to see it, trust it, and say your name in rooms you're not in. AI can draft the document. It can't build the trust that makes people act on it. And the best opportunities aren't assigned, they are sitting in the white space, waiting for someone to claim them. If this landed, share it with someone who is doing great work and still feels invisible for it. Find Uma on LinkedIn if you want to keep the conversation going. Her book, Sought After Leader, is out now on Amazon. Next episode is coming soon. Stay tuned. This is Agentic AI Execution. Until next time, stay curious, keep building, and bring someone along for the ride.